Well, it is the fifth game of the regular season, and I have to break out a full video of negative. Honestly, I'm impressed. I'm impressed that we got this far without having to have a talk like this. But here we are. The Golden Knights snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and lose in regulation 4-3 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And as much as I don't want to talk about it, it's my job, so we're going to talk about it. This was, on paper, going to be one of the Golden Knights' toughest games early on in the season. Everybody knew that going in. This is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won 2 Stanley Cups for a reason. They're a very good team. However, they haven't been a world beater recently. That being said, the Lightning did have the Golden Knights' number last year, beating them enough, let's be honest. I was in attendance of the last time the Golden Knights made a trip to Tampa Bay. Jiri Patera was in net that night. Golden Knights had a 2-0 lead early and ultimately lost on a last-minute goal. I believe it was Nick Paul who scored that goal that night on Jiri Patera, who fell down, go boom. And so that was a painful one. Knights should have gotten a point last year in that game. And as you're going to find out, a script very similar to what we experienced last year, what I saw in person, played out in South Central Florida the other night again. So let's take it from the top, why don't we? Because this is going to be a carnival of pain. Golden Knights begin life without Victor Olofsson, and I can't believe I'm saying that already, but he's got 3 goals in 4 games, and now he's out. Last I saw, he was on crutches, and even the day after the game, Cassidy has nothing to say about his current condition, timeline, injury details, or when we can expect him to be back, if at all. All we've seen is that he was at practice about, the day after in a boot on crutches. So that could mean day to day, that could mean week to week, that could mean his season's over with torn ligaments. So until we get more information, Brendan Brisson has been called back into service, as Olofsson is the second Golden Knight to go down with injury this year, because as we haven't talked about very much, because the Golden Knights up until this road trip were one of the best teams, if not the best team in hockey. William Karlsson has been injured since training camp. He hasn't played a game this year yet, and no timeline for his return. He's still on IR as of the time of recording this. So we get to put together what might be, and you're going to have to check me on this, what may be the youngest line in Golden Knights history. A line of Cole Schwindt, Brendan Brisson, and Alexander Holtz. I believe Holtz is the eldest statesman on that line, aged 23. My age. So do with that information what you will. But somehow the Golden Knights actually get off to a really good start, and not like they've done it all year. They did not give up the first goal. Braden McNabb gets loose, and I know it's weird to say Braden McNabb gets loose. He almost never scores. He finds a dead spot, forehand toe drags it past a defender and shoots it high glove on Vasilevsky, giving the Golden Knights a 1-0 lead. And that was positive. That was a good step forward. That was until a couple minutes later when Moser tied it up. I believe he beat Aiden Hill on the glove side. Again, this is going to be a theme, but we're gonna get to that. So just as quickly as it was 1-0 Golden Knights, it is equally as quickly 1-1, and we have ourselves a hockey game again. But the Golden Knights get a power play, and this power play, even with Olofsson not in the lineup, still has some teeth to it. It's still a very solid power play, and it shows that. The puck finds Pavel Dorofeev. I'm not entirely sure how it got there because, in all honesty, I was not entirely attentively watching this power play because I'm still a jaded Knights fan, and after last year I got used to, the power play kind of sucking. And so Dorofeev finds the puck, wires it home, Golden Knights are up 2-1 again, and all is right with the world. And then very quickly after that, Nikita Kucherov scores, and all is very much not right with the world again, as that goal came with about 12 seconds to go in the first period. So not great. Clearly a locker room attendant must have gone down the bench during the last TV timeout and said, all right, guys, here's what we got. We got fruit snacks, we got Gatorades, And if you're really good and you finish strong, we're going to have graham crackers for you. Yeah, they must have put the snacks out a little early because the Golden Knights stopped playing, and the vaunted defense core, one of the best defensive lines on paper in the NHL of Alex Pietrangelo and Shea Theodore looked terrible on this goal, just terrible. So what was a period full of positive moments was marred by missed defensive coverages and lapses in judgment, and Aiden Hill not being able to make a save. And so what could be a Golden Knights lead is a tie ball game going into the first intermission. Second period gets underway, and there's another beacon of hope. There's another good moment for the Golden Knights. Puck gets rimmed behind the net. I believe it's Theodore goes in, having to atone for his major mistake at the end of the first period. Works the puck down low, finds himself below the goal line, goes to center it to Eichel. Puck hits off of one skate of the Lightning, and then hits off of another Lightning skate, finds Ivan Barbashev in the slot, and he's not going to ask you twice. When a puck finds him like that, he is going to bury it because he's Ivan Barbashev and he's very good at hockey. So he does, and he is, and the Golden Knights are up 3-2, taking their third lead of the game, and everything's actually okay. Now, don't take okay as good, because there's a very big difference between the Golden Knights being okay and the Golden Knights playing good. They were okay. They were not good. And this was very clearly illustrated late in the period when they took a bunch of penalties back to back to back. I believe this was very similar to what happened last year in Tampa Bay. Golden Knights get the lead, get penalty trouble, and they get scored on. Difference is they didn't get scored on this time. They were able to kill a 5-on-3, kill the remainder of the 5-on-4, and get away with it after taking some rather atrociously bad penalties in situations where you just can't be taking penalties. So they dodged that bullet. They get into the locker room for the second period. Clearly they didn't put the snacks out this time. And it was 3-2, and they were holding on to their lead. And at least on the couch here, I was thinking everything was right with the world. Golden Knights are going into the third period with the lead. This historically is one of the best teams in hockey when entering the third period with the lead. They very seldom, if ever, lose games in this situation because they're a good defensive team in the third period. And for 15 minutes of the third period, that is exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, okay, time's winding down. We're 5 minutes in and we're controlling play. Okay, now we're 10 minutes in and we're still controlling play in this third period. Okay, we're 15 minutes in and we've kind of started to lose control of the game a little bit. We're getting hemmed in the zone, but they're pushing now because there's 5 minutes to go. And we get into the last TV timeout and I'm thinking, okay, everything's okay. We're going to kill the last couple of minutes. Hill's going to make a couple of saves because he hasn't made many saves this year. He's going to fix his numbers. He's going to have a good game. He's going to endear himself to the fan base. They're going to have to weather a tough goalie out because the Lightning are really, really good on the power play, and so it's effectively a power play. And worst case scenario, this game goes to overtime. The Golden Knights get a point. The problem with that thinking is that's exactly what I was thinking last year when the Golden Knights took their yearly trip to Tampa Bay. And just like last year, I am left disappointed as things unravel very, very, very quickly. It all starts on a rather innocuous play. There's about 2 minutes to go, 2 minutes 20 to go. And the Lightning are getting gummed up in the neutral zone. There's an absolutely nothing play. The puck finds Brandon Hagel the bagel from all those years ago. And he just kind of works his way to Hill's left. Pietrangelo is stuck in the muck. He totally misreads this play. And Theodore goes down low, I think to cover like Nick Paul or something, and winds up moving screens. Hill doesn't really do anything to put the body on anybody or do anything of value for that matter, and flashes right in front of Hill's eyes right as Hagel releases the shot, beats Hill blocker side. This is a shot from well beyond the circles. This was closer to the blue line than it was to the circles, and it beats Hill clean. And so now we've got a tie game. And I make the mistake of thinking, okay, they're not going to let that happen again. They're going to shut it down. There's absolutely no reason to be concerned about the Golden Knights doing what they did last December in Tampa when I was there. And so we get to the last minute 30. And I'm like, okay, all right, the Knights, they're not playing great, but they're playing good enough to get to overtime. And we get to minute 10, and they're still playing good enough to get to overtime. We get to a minute, and I think, okay, I think we're going to get it to overtime. This puck is harmlessly in the corner. We've got a good defensive unit on, and then I look at the forward lines. Keegan Colasar, Nick Waugh, Brett Howden against Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough. And doesn't matter who the fifth Lightning player is because they didn't have to pull the goalie anymore, and it doesn't matter. And I am thinking, where have I seen this movie before? And I cast my mind back to last December, right before the Lightning scored the game-winning goal with about a minute to go on Yuri Patera to win that game 5-4. And the line on the ice for that one was Keegan Colasar, Nick Waugh, and Will Carrier. No, wait, it wasn't Will Carrier. I think it was Brett Howden because Carrier was hurt at that point. So I've seen this movie before. I even think the defense pair was the same because Nick Hague was on the ice both times. And so the puck finds Nikita Kucherov in the corner. It's completely harmless. He throws it at the net, and it goes off Nick Hague, beats Hill up over the shoulder, and it is now 4-3. So when I say the Golden Knights snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, I wasn't kidding. I wish I was kidding, but unfortunately, I'm not. So, yeah. Golden Knights aren't able to muster anything with the goalie out. They were 140 seconds away from getting, at worst, 1 point. Probably getting 2. Because this is a solid defensive team, or at least on paper, it should be a solid defensive team. But they play a bad 2 minutes, and just like what happened to them in December of last year, January of last year, when they went from first in the division to out of the playoffs because they couldn't close down games just like this, momentary lapses, stupid mental mistakes, and defense not defensing, they took a winnable game and they turned it into a regulation loss. So that's really frustrating. I'm so tired of this team doing this. It's exhausting. The loss in Washington was acceptable because the team didn't get up for that one. That one I kind of expected. Logan Thompson has the book on the team. He's been I don't want to say de facto starter, but he was the de facto starter last year. And so he's got the book on these guys, and Washington got up for it. It was early in their season, like their second game or something. And, they hadn't played a road game yet, and that was the Knights' first road game. So I can accept that one. I cannot accept being up in the third period, controlling the game for large sections of the game, and then you intentionally put yourself at a disadvantage by putting your fourth line out against their first line after giving up the game-tying goal nonetheless, which I don't understand. You put your second or third pair and your fourth line forwards against an obvious push? I don't get it. So, Bruce, please make that one make sense to me. I understand you trust all your lines equally, but you made the same goddamn mistake last year against this team, and the exact same thing happened. So, one's an anomaly, two's a pattern. I swear to God, if we get to 3 as a trend, I'm going to throw something. And my last bit of the last thing that I want to say, the absolute last thing I want to say, isn't necessarily to the team, because the forwards played well. Jack Eichel extends his point streak. He's now got points in 5. He's second in the NHL in scoring. Stone's third in the NHL in score. With ties, I guess Eichel's third in the league and Stone is fifth in the league. So scoring isn't the problem. We've got players scoring at career clips right now. There's one player that's letting this team down right now, and it's the guy that is the reason that we have this banner right now, and it's Adin Hill. He is probably the worst goalie in the NHL right now. He's got a goal against average of 4, which is bad. That's really bad. He's got a save percentage, which I think is hovering around 850. I think if you put me behind that defense, I can put up an 850. And I get it. He's had the much harder matchups. He's had to play Colorado. He's had to play St. Louis. He's had to play Washington, and he's had to play Tampa. And I get all that. He won a Stanley Cup. He's the certifiable number 1 on this team. He was the number 1 last year. But remember that bit of yips that he had at the end of last season? The reason Logan Thompson was the Game 1 starter against the Stars. We're getting a relapse of that. He's playing like he's still a member of the Coyotes or a member of the Sharks. He's paying like we should have paid a 4th-round pick for him. He overperformed, obviously, when we got this. We all knew that. We all knew in 22-23, in that playoffs run, he way overperformed. But he's still a very good goalie. Right now, he's out Samsonoving Samsonov. And that's terrible. That's unbelievably terrible. I don't understand why, after giving up 4 for the 3rd straight game and going to Tampa, they didn't even consider starting Samsonov, who has given up 1 goal all season. So I get it. Samsonov's your backup. You don't want to cross the streams, but you have to win games. You can't throw away games like this, and Hill cannot buy a save right now. I'm not saying it's fault. I don't know if he got screened on that 3rd goal, and own goals are going to happen. And it's just really crappy that it happened the way it did. But at the same time, you have to make the saves when you're presented with them. Sure, he made a couple of incredible saves on Kucherov in the 2nd period during the 5-on-3 and the 5-on-4 that followed it. That was good. He has some good moments. But I'm going to hit him with the same critique that I hit Jake Ottinger with on the podcast when I talked about his new contract extension. Ottinger hasn't won a big game. Hill hasn't made a big save this year. And so that's where we're at. He's not playing up to his potential. And so I would have loved to have seen Samsonov the other night. But we didn't get that. And so now Hill has given up 16 goals in 4 games. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable from a goalie making $5 million a year. That's acceptable if your name is like Malcolm Subban or something. But you're Aiden Hill. You were like 3rd place in you almost won the Conn Smythe 2 years ago. You were going to get Vezina votes last year until you got injured. And you've come back this year, and I don't know if it's the parting with True and going to Brian's equipment, or the fact that you now know you're the number 1, you don't have to fight for your job. Try harder. Please. Please. You got to make the saves, man. I still love you to death as my goalie, but you got to make the saves, and it's really frustrating that I don't want to hang this one on you because I hang it on the team not playing to the buzzer in the 1st and the 3rd period, but 16 goals in 4 games is not good enough. That's just not good enough, and a save percentage anything below .890 is unacceptable. And so the fact that you're so far below that is inexcusable. Wow, I really went in there. But it's warranted because this team has so much more potential. And like, I get it. It's early in the year. It's the 5th game of an 82-game season. And I know I shouldn't be worried about, division, playoff standings, who's winning, who isn't winning. But on a night where the Calgary Flames go to 4-0, on a night where Edmonton gets a win and they have since won again, on a night where Vancouver wins, on a night where LA wins, you can't be leaving points on the table. This is what caught the Golden Knights with their pants down last year, blowing a 3rd period lead to Arizona down the stretch, blowing a 3rd period lead to Nashville down the stretch. That was the difference between playing Edmonton in the 1st round and playing Dallas in the 1st round. Now, I'm not going to say the Knights would have won either of those series, but we're the Oilers' boogeyman. We're their boogeyman. We would have at least given them a better run for their money than the Kings did. So these points matter. I get it. It's October. We don't need to be talking about what happens in March and April, but it adds up in a long season. And it's not like the last bit of this road trip is any easier. It's the reigning champs. They're still beefed. They've still got beef with us from 2 years ago. You think they're going to make that game in South Florida any easier than the game was in Tampa? Hell no. No chance. Absolutely not. So you got to get the points on these road trips while you can. You got to try and split the road trips. Get 3 points in 3 games. Even just getting to overtime, the bare minimum of what I expected when holding a lead going into the last minute and a half of the game, you get a point. But they didn't. So with that, Golden Knights are, I don't want to say spiraling, but they're not sitting as pretty as they were when they hit the road after opening their season in Vegas. 3-2, heading into a tough game with the Panthers, who are off to a pretty solid start to their season, no less. Really didn't want them to drop all 3 games on this road trip. It would be one of the very few times in Golden Knights history they will go 0 for a road trip in terms of not just wins, but points. So that's not great. Olsen's going to be out for a while, which really isn't great. If we don't see Samsonov against the Panthers, I have a great deal of questions as to what they're doing with their goaltending management. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope that not only does Samsonov get the start, but he's able to salvage at least a point, if not 2. But, that's not for me to decide. There are people who are way better at hockey and way better at management than me making these decisions. I'm just a talking head with a hat on YouTube with not a lot of people watching me. But it's frustrating. As a fan, it's really frustrating to see that kind of game happen. And like so frustrating to the point where I'm recording this video 24 hours after the game ends and I still haven't completely cooled down from it. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and hope that the next game tomorrow night goes just a little bit better. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on that one. So despite all the negativity, I know some of you get the entertainment. I know schadenfreude is a great emotion. I've been feeling it a little bit watching the Oilers and Avalanche. So I'm right there with you, and I guess this is karma for preying on their downfall. But regardless of whether you enjoyed this or feel my pain, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the rants, the raves, the issues, and the calling it as I see it. Comment down below if you want to pile on or pile against my points. I will take either, as I love a lively debate in the comments section. Like the video if you enjoyed anything I said or hated everything that I said. It helps me all the same. And, of course, subscribe if you want to hear more of outbursts like this throughout what is sure to be a 82-game season with a lot of ups and downs, and I really hope at least a handful of playoff games with all the more emotional damage. So, that being said, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.